One of my colleagues, one of my best friends actually, has just had a baby and he's 42. And he's spending a lot of time with people who don't speak back to him, which is never good if you're an academic, to be honest. But his question that he got in the middle of the night was, why stay? I have a baby. Do I want her to stay here? And the tragedy is that's not an unusual question here. It's one of the questions lots of people ask. This is one of these places which people, when asked, say, this is hopeless. This is seriously hopeless. But it never was hopelessly serious up to now. But he was asking a hopelessly serious question in the middle of the night. I'm an older sort of person now. I've grown up children, and funnily enough, they've all come back. And I find myself in a kind of heart-head dilemma. I'm glad they're back. I'm really delighted they're back. But is it wise? And what should I tell them? And I realized, actually, it's the same journey I went on myself 30 years ago. Why am I here? Why did I come back here? And I suppose, when I look back, I think this. I think here was a place where a really important question was being asked. And it was a question which I, in my work, didn't have an answer for, but I had to learn about. And I suppose it was a question of how do you build a future after all that injury, after all that hurt, after all that trauma? How do you do it when it's obvious that you can't trust them? It was a world full of goodies and baddies, where everybody was sure they were the goodies and the other were the baddies, and that meant that compromise was never possible. But it was also a unique lens on the world. It was this kind of what you call a liminal space, a place at the edge, an edgy kind of a place where borders had to be crossed every day, a place which was uncertain, but where the unexpected always happened. And I suppose I felt and feel it was the best of worlds and it was the worst of worlds. It was both violent and it was generous. It was full of hate every day, but it was full with humour. I realised on the day when Belfast City Council, on the 23rd of December, changed the massive iron statement at the front of the City Hall saying Belfast says no into Belfast says Noel, we had a chance. If it doesn't kill you, it caught you up. And on another level, we're also a lucky place. This isn't a poor place in world scale. This is an uneducated place. We have a democracy. We're sitting here now. We live in a degree of comfort which even the poorest people hope for a better future. So we had an opportunity too to learn, which most people in conflict don't get, because most times everything gets destroyed, and there was lots to do. When I was in the Community Relations Council, one of the biggest moments, I suppose, was when the Dalai Lama came. And the Dalai Lama said to us, after everybody complained about Northern Ireland, and he's living obviously in Tibet, and they asked him and waited for a moment of great wisdom after everybody had complained, and he said, yes, conflict is very difficult. And his answer was, you try this, you try that, you try this. I know a lot of my colleagues were underwhelmed, but he bought me that moment because he's absolutely right. This is something which we have to learn to do what we don't know how to do. This is something which isn't a job for one person, it's a job for all. And that means you can start anywhere. And I suppose we have been and still are in moving from, can you go from being friends and foes to being partners, an innovation lab. We're learning to do what people don't quite know what to do. I remember working with the police and he said, you know what we're being asked to do? We're being asked to fly this plane while fixing it. And sometimes it does feel like you're out on the edge of the wing. And we've more pilots than Ryanair, to be honest. Part of the difficulty is, however, that people still think that relationship work is soft work. I remember the head of the civil service coming to me and saying, community relations, cucumber sandwiches of policy. Well, I have to tell you, if you're the cucumber sandwiches, you're not at the top of their list. That's what they do when they have a day off. But I have to tell you, I don't think it's hard and soft. I think it's hard and harder. Lots of things are hard. This is harder. And what have I learned? I've learned another here is possible. And it is, because I've seen it. I've learned that there are lots of reasons why you can't break an enemy relationship, and there are lots of people who've done it. I've learned that stopping violence is only a step. In the language, they talk about the negative piece and the positive piece. The positive piece means not just stopping violence, that's the negative, it's building something else. And that's the bit which takes a bit of time, and that's what we have to learn. If we don't put our shoulder to the wheel, and we don't see the building of a different type of world as our job, it won't happen. But I also tell you as well, I've learned that you meet the most unexpected people in the most unexpected places, and that very often it's incredibly funny and you learn lots. At a more academic level, I do know that peace is a massive risk, because what we know, the known world, is the world of conflict. What we don't know is the world of peace. And the world of peace means learning to do things that you did differently from before. So you don't have to be too hard on people who are making mistakes, but you do have to say that learning's the only game in town. The second one thing, if it's about risk, it's also about relationships. And anybody who's in a relationship that works knows, and I'm 30 years married this year, that you didn't know what was ahead of you when you said yes. So we can't sort it out before we start. We have to say yes. It is a choice. And it's a revolution. To see people as friends or foes, people who you can't trust, because to be honest, it's more than them and us. It's not just that they're different, it's that they're a risk. To move from there to being our partners is a revolution. And what that means is we need to prepare ourselves for things we didn't expect. And we need people to be with us. So it's a choice, it's a revolution, it's a strange country, it takes a lot of people to do it. And leadership means not to be the boss. It means to boldly go where no person these days has been before. But I think there may be a difference between knowing and learning. I think sometimes we know more than we want to learn. I know, that a shared future is better than the alternative, because the alternatives are all much, much more difficult for lots more people. That the goodies and baddies aren't quite as simple as we thought they were, and we have to live with that. That anything can knock us out if we're not sure that we really want to say yes. That the people who paid in this country weren't the people who deserved it any more than anybody else. That some things can't be paid for, and some things can, and we need to know the difference, and we need to get on with what can. We know a lot, but when you watch this place, and we're in that ghost of a parliament here today, we ask, what have we actually learned? And we still find it hard to choose. This place is still edgy, it's still real, and we are still learning. I have no intention of going anywhere, and I really hope my children stay. This is a human journey. Conflict is very difficult, but it appears that making the choice to get out is also very difficult. And we are learning that some learning is hard, but it's the only learning worth doing. And the problem now is we're not just learning it on our own, we're learning it for the whole world. Thank you.